Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is James, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about locations and the maps that's in The Walking Dead, that's about The Walking Dead, and a little bit about my journey of making the map journeys of Rick and Daryl. So I've done an animated map journey of Rick Grimes, and that's all the way through episode 9-5, where he left the show, the bridge blew up, he left on the helicopter. And I've also got The Ones Who Live. I've mapped that out as well. I'll leave a link to that video. And I'm working on Daryl's map, Daryl's animated map journey. And he goes, the thing with Daryl, he goes past episode 9-5 all the way through to the end of season 11. So that includes the Commonwealth story, the Whisperer story, and all of that. So it was pretty hard putting together the Rick map, trying to figure out where the places were. And it was even a little bit harder doing the Daryl map because of the Whisper territory, where were the lines drawn, and different things like that, depending on where the communities were. And it's pretty difficult because the thing is, the production doesn't care. They move places around. And to prove that, let me show you Hilltop for an example. It's like, okay, James, as you're making a map, you're looking at the show, where is everything? And I actually did an explainer video on the map after I did the Rick map. I'll leave a link to that video as well, and I'll actually play some clips from that video in this video. But to show you what I'm talking about specifically, as far as the show doesn't care, and we'll show you two different things. In one episode it'll say a location is here, and a different episode it'll say it's here. And it's just very confusing, and it's really hard when you sit down and try to make a map. So let's take Hilltop for an example. Back during All Out War, Negan showed us this map. Dwight showed us this map. Hey, this is where Negan's going to be. He's surrounding Hilltop. Well, if you look at the map, it clearly shows Hilltop is in Culpeper, Virginia. So if you look on the map I made for the Rick journey, and going to use the same map for the Daryl journey, I put Hilltop very near Culpeper. But things like that, knowing that Hilltop is in between the Kingdom and Alexandria, and the Sanctuary is in between the Kingdom and Hilltop, they do those kind of things in the show. So I had to make it that way somehow, even if other parts of the show said, no, it should be over here. The Kingdom should be closer to Washington, D.C., maybe even across the Potomac. But it doesn't work out that way. It just doesn't work out that way. So we've got this map here from All Out War showing where Hilltop is. The show itself showed us this map. We'll jump to the time of Commonwealth, and Negan had to circle on a map where Hilltop was and where Riverside is, the place that Negan and his wife were staying with their little group in that building, and they called it Riverside. Hey, go get Maggie. Telling this dude, go get Maggie. Here's Hilltop. Go here. Well, if you look on that map, Hilltop is a totally different place than Culpeper. Maybe Negan said just follow that road and meant going straight down that road, you'll end up at Hilltop. But that's not really how it seemed like he meant. He circled Hilltop. And this map has blood on it because the guy carrying it, the guy that Negan handed the map to, got injured, and he died by the time he fell off the horse right there at Hilltop. So if you look at where Riverbend is on this map, you can see up there's Parkersburg, and the highway that goes along, you see Hilltop there circled, like it's real close to Riverbend, which Riverbend is real close to Commonwealth. So that would make, which is in Ohio, which would make Hilltop real close to Commonwealth, which is in Ohio. But that's not true. That's just not anything like the previous shows have told us. And it's crazy. They just, plot needs it to be that way. And they do that in The Walking Dead constantly with so many things. It's pretty annoying, actually. But they just needed Hilltop to be closer. Commonwealth, it seemed like, just traveled to Hilltop willy-nilly, like, okay, it's just right there. But if you look at an actual map, let me put the point of Culpeper, Virginia, where Hilltop's supposed to be. Now let me put a point at where they said Hilltop is, according to this map, and where Riverside is. So if you look at the original Culpeper location of Hilltop, It's way far away, as the other communities, Alexandria and all the other communities. It's really far away. It's not just a hop, skip, and jump like, dude, get on your horse and go get Maggie to come help us, like Negan asked the dude, because they were all in trouble and stuff and needed Maggie's help. So everything is just according to plot, and that makes it very, very, very difficult for me as far as trying to make a map, because it's almost impossible. So I had to do just the best I could. So if we go to one point in the show where they find the bridge has been destroyed, and Rick ends up at the sanctuary. That's where Daryl is. He's been kind of trying to lead the sanctuary. And this is after Negan, after all that war, after Negan's in jail. Rick's there talking to Daryl, and Daryl makes a statement like this.
Most of the bridges are out after the big storm. The highway's done.
So at that point, the show kind of tells us, well, a bunch of the roads are just impassable for whatever reason, and that a lot of the bridges are out. There's little rivers that run through there, and a lot of the bridges are out, some of the main bridges, so that's why it came down to this one bridge being very important, even though on the map it looks like, hey, there's a bunch more roads they could take. Well, what Daryl says in that one point kind of fixes that a little bit. You notice on the old map I had sanctuary and pretty much everything up closer to Washington, everything closer together, but I had to spread it out because it just didn't work out as I started through the episodes and laying out the path of Rick Grimes. And one of the biggest episodes that I went by is that snow episode. They left out from the kingdom heading to Hilltop because it's in between. Some of them were going to continue on to Alexandria, which you saw a snowball fight towards the end of the episode. That's some of them actually finally reaching Alexandria, but they stopped at Hilltop first. But before they even went to Hilltop, the bridge was out, the roads were bad, they had to detour and go to the sanctuary. They traveled over into Whisper territory, and that does, this map does allow, the map I used, it does allow for the Whisper territory to creep in from the south, up the coast. And it looks like they could get to Hilltop pretty easy with one of those other roads, but as Daryl said, the roads are bad, the other bridges are out. Aaron, reminds us that Rick's bridge is still out. So they have to go the long way around, and I just had to choose a path. And Ezekiel says to Henry at bridge camp at one point,
without this bridge, there'd be no trade. Bullets from Alexandria, grain from Hilltop, fish from Oceanside.
So I went by that as well to saying, the sanctuary and kingdom are on one side, and everything else that they want to trade with is on the other side. And one quick note on Oceanside, someone asked, it's crazy how the Saviors never knew about Alexandria until Rick showed up, but knew about Oceanside. I never understood that. Well, to answer that question, it tells us in the episode where the Saviors are getting killed. And Daryl figures out, he's with Maggie, figures out that it's the Oceanside people for killing the Saviors for revenge because the Saviors had killed all their men. And supposedly this was maybe before Negan come along. Someone can correct me on that, but I think Simon did it before Negan came along, maybe before they joined Negan and the Saviors. But Oceanside community at that time was at another place, and this is where they killed a rat, if I'm saying that name right. Daryl and Maggie come up on them, and they're about to kill that Savior, and Daryl and Maggie just kind of turns and walks away and lets them do it. And that's when Maggie says, hey, I'm going to kill Negan, and that starts all that process. Well, they were at Hollow Brant Outreach Recovery, closer over there to, I didn't mark it on the map or anything because Rick didn't go there. This was Rick Grimes' journey. But the Outreach Recovery place should have been somewhere over there closer to those other communities. That's the place they killed a rat. That's where all the men were killed by Simon. And then Oceanside fled. So Simon didn't know where they went, that kind of thing. They fled all the way over there to Oceanside. So I totally get it with anyone who says, oh, that location can't be there because of this, or this. I hear you, because one episode will say one thing and another episode will say another thing. And, oh, in the comic, it was different. It was definitely in this location. Well, that was the comic. This is the show. So yeah, the whole map, the whole thing is very speculative. I had to guess. I had to just do the best I could because one episode says this and then the next episode says another thing. I had to choose. Well, maybe I'll just put it here. And because that makes more sense as far as just what they're doing and what they're saying as the episodes play along. But I do challenge anyone, if they have the time or ever maybe want to, start at episode 1 of The Walking Dead and watch through it looking at a map and trying to lay it out, because you'll see a lot of discrepancies. You'll see that by the time you get to seasons 8, 9, 10, most of the other stuff, how you marked on the map, you're starting to have to change because, oh, wait, well, that can't be there if they just did this in this episode. So let me change it. Well, then by by the next season, you're already changing it again, moving it a little different place. And if I had to do over, if I had done the Daryl map first, for an example, where the Whisperer territory had to creep in around the community somehow, I would have maybe even placed things a little bit different than I did in this map. Because the Whisperer territory, that's kind of throwing me for a loop a little bit on the Daryl map. But that's just the things we go through as far as fans trying to figure stuff out. And I just wish, I know I've said it before a bunch of times, I just really wish The Walking Dead would be more serious about that aspect of things, like Game of Thrones, or a show or series that provides maps, detailed maps and history, and those intriguing things that all make sense when you look at it, and it makes sense in the show as you watch it. The Walking Dead just isn't that. It just isn't that. It's a very surface level show, and it makes it hard. I know a lot of my reviews are a little bit on the negative side because of all of that. Because I like to watch shows that you can look a little bit deeper in. You can look a little bit past the surface. I mean, I like shows that you can deep dive past the surface, like From, Severance, Foundation. But The Walking Dead just isn't that show. And see what you guys think. See what maybe other questions you guys might have. Hey, let me know down in the comments below. And I'll join you there. This is James, and as always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more Dead stuff.